Hello, welcome. This is Arti. I'm here on behalf of Inner Space this evening, and I'm here to welcome you to the Friday evening talk. Today's talk is Breathe, Body, Mind, and Soul. And our speaker is joining us from Montreal in Canada. And Tanya is going to be sharing insights on how to breathe intentionally and mindfully. I never really thought you had to intentionally breathe, but yes, it's a thing and it's there to help your body, but also help your mind to become not just calm, but powerful. So, Tanya is going to be sharing on the superpower that I think most of us take for granted. And so, how we connect our mind, our body, our soul with through breath, but also the whole way of being able to breathe intentionally. And I believe Tanya is going to actually do some exercises with us. So I hope you'll enjoy it. The talk will be followed by questions. So if you'd like to pose any questions to Tanya, please do send it to us via the question and answer link in the um, confirmation email that you received. Otherwise, I'm going to hand over to Tanya. Tanya, thank you very, very much. And I look forward to hearing you.
Great. Thank you so much, Arti. So welcome to Breathe, Body, Mind, Soul. And this is something actually that I'm very fortunate I get to do in my work. It's been a little less work in this time of COVID, but actually I've been meeting people online, meeting some of my clients, former clients, to deal with just the stress of their lives at this time. And I think of one in particular. For her, it was, how can I manage my anxiety? And this isn't someone who, sort of a bit marginal and isolated. This is someone who's working, who has a really intense job, a lot of responsibility, and is a very caring person, and is managing. But she knows that internally, it's kind of a different story. And I think that's a fair case to say for many of us, that we're able to kind of manage and put out and do what we need to, but internally we just want to feel a bit more masterful, and just to have, if you will, a way, tools to not just hope to have well-being, but actually promote it, to actively do something to generate it within ourselves. And so I was really excited to explore this topic because I mentioned it's my work, but it's also, I think, a passion of mine. I've been fascinated by movement, and breath is pretty much the foundation. As I like to say, if that movement isn't happening, there probably isn't going to be any other kind of movement happening. So we know breath is the foundation of life. And yet when we talk about breathing, we're talking about the body breathing. And in fact, when we talk about mind, body, and soul, and perhaps I'll take the body and I'll put it on one side, so the body, and then mind and soul I'll put on the other side, because they're actually quite connected. And why I say that is because in a way, these two things of mind and soul are the being. And then over here we have the body. And certainly there's ways, mechanical ways, that I can explore to help the body breathe better, to help ultimately the body feel better and function better. But I would like the being, which ultimately is me, to also function and feel better. And in fact, the way we're going to approach breathing, and yes, you are going to be doing exercises. So if you're not seated in a chair, and it doesn't have to be an office chair, I'm just in this chair, so I can do something like this and show you the side view. But you can be sitting in, a dining room chair. And if you need to put a cushion in the back, that's totally fine. Be comfortable. But if you can be seated in a chair, that would be great. So we want the being also to feel better, and to have a way, have tools to be able to promote that state. And so interestingly, the two actually work together and support each other. There's a lot of cooperation. The being is essential to help the body. And the body, once it's been helped, can actually, if you will, transfer that state that it's in and help the being also to feel better. So it's this wonderful symbiotic relationship rather than the body being sort of a disaster and pulling the being down with it. We want to see how they can work together so both end up a lot better than they started. So I find that doing and experiencing go a lot further than me explaining. So perhaps we'll do a little bit and I can explain as we're going along or afterwards. So you're sitting in the chair, and even though we're going to talk about how to breathe better, it's not like I say, okay, so now breathe better, make your ribs expand more, take in more air. I mean, all of those things are going to be kind of useless if you can even do them. And it's not actually the best way to approach breathing, because ultimately, breathing is movement, and any movement in the body is going to be enhanced automatically when you address the alignment. So we're going to address the alignment of the body, because often the body is in an alignment that does not support good breathing patterns or habits. And when we add in all the things we do, which usually involve having our arms out in front of us, driving, texting, devices, keyboard, all of that, our arms are out here, that even makes the alignment even more kind of, if you will, unsupportive of good breathing. So we want to address the alignment. What the breathing will then turn into is something we intention. So using the power of our minds, which is kind of like meditation, really, but using the power, making our minds powerful by using them actively to help the body. But also breath will become a loyal indicator. So if I observe the breath, it will tell me kind of, I need to do something about my alignment, or it's all great. So let's just use our awareness now. So coming from the mind soul side, we're going to use our awareness, our consciousness, which is coming from this being side. So we're going to say being, body, to observe the body and see where things are at. So let's just start really easy. Okay, we're going to kind of refine the awareness as we go along, and refining it is going to make it obviously more powerful. So you're going to use your awareness to just observe where your body's making contact with the chair. So probably for most of us, we feel obviously the legs, the thighs on the chair seat. We're feeling perhaps the lower back, the back of the pelvis, the lower spine against the back of the chair. And then as we move up, we start to kind of maybe pull away. For many of us, we do something called rounding forward. So that would be something like this. If this is the case, not great for breathing. Then if we add our arms being up, the weight of our arms tends to pull the body forward until we can be spending hours like this, and then wonder at the end of it, why does my neck hurt? Why do I have a headache? Why do I just feel awful? And why does do I try and stand up and my legs and my hips and my back hurt? Well, the alignment was not very supportive of the body being well and of me using that body, even in these what can seem minimal ways. So first and foremost, let's adjust our alignment very easily so that we can start to help the breathing. Actually, sorry, we're going to back up one more thing. You're going to observe now, where is the breathing happening? Because remember I mentioned that breathing will be your loyal indicator. So let's use it as an indicator now. Probably for many of us, it will indicate that the breathing, that the alignment is not good. Usually when we observe where the movement of the breath is in the body, we're going to feel it mostly from the midsection, so the lower ribs, diaphragm area, down into the belly. We'll feel some movement. We may feel a little bit going up, but a lot of it really from the middle down, especially if we're slightly rounded forward so that our shoulder blades are no longer in contact with the chair back. So we want to adjust that, because the breathing loyal indicator should be, I experience the breathing from the midline here in the chest. Why? That's where my lungs are. The ribs have been designed to move. Yeah, bones with tissues in between that have the capacity to stretch, expand, and release. So there should be like the ribs should expand and release like a bony balloon, but often it's not doing that. So let's see what we can do about that. You're going to place your hands lightly on the tops of your thighs. And again, everything we're intentioning, we're using the power of the being, the power of consciousness through directing the mind, the awareness to observe. When we observe, energy goes there. And we find we can start to actually support and direct that area to move much more effectively than if our awareness is all over the place and we just try and do something we've heard someone tell us, like a direction you get in an exercise class. So we're going to intentionally use the observation, direct the awareness to the part of the body, and then direct that movement. So taking your awareness to the back of your ribs where it's making contact, the back of your body, where it's making contact with the chair. You're going to slowly roll the rib cage up the back of the chair, gently bringing more of it in contact with the chair. So you can maybe see I'm kind of moving back and my body's opening up in the front. As I get my shoulder blades should actually be in contact with the chair. And actually that's where I should feel the pressure at the back of my ribs centered on the shoulder blades, the tops, not the bottoms, but the tops, the upper part of the shoulder blades. And so I'm going to feel kind of those bones now, pressing it gently into the cushioning part of the chair. Now, in that position, if I observe the breath, I may feel now there's a bit more movement up into the rib cage. And that's good, but it may not be complete. And actually, if I lift my arms up, and you can try this, I may start to feel the breath stifled because I've lifted my arms, because there's still an alignment that needs to be addressed. So coming back down, just positioning the rib cage is not enough. And that's often the mistake we make. That's all we do. We think, oh, I'm sitting nice and tall now. I've got my chest up, my shoulders back. But something needs to happen at the level of the pelvis, lower back, and at the hip socket. So we need to reposition the pelvis. Now, if I say to you, reposition your pelvis, get an arch in your lower back. Well, I could get all sorts of things. I could get like, where suddenly you're arching away. Often we go to extremes. So I'm not going to give you that direction, because I also want you to use and refine the consciousness, which is the being side, empower it as we help the body breathe better. So it's kind of like we're managing both sides at the same time. We're going to bring the body into a better state of wellness, and we're going to bring the being as well by refining and empowering that consciousness, that awareness. So we've got the shoulder blades. Just check that out. Shoulder blades are against the back of the chair and your hands are on your thighs. Now, using your incredible power, it's the greatest power we have actually, of your awareness, consciousness, feeling the hands in contact with the thighs. You're going to will your thighs, and you're going to actually try to press them gently, gently upwards into your hands. Now they're not going to move. Your feet are not going to come off the ground, but just that effort is activating muscles that are starting to pull, that will pull the pelvis forward, so that you start to get that gentle arch in the lowest part of your spine. That lower back gently pulls away from the chair back. And the pelvis now is coming more on top of what we call the sit bones, those bones you feel when you sit on a hard bench. And now in this position, and it's just by trying to press your thighs up into your hands, like magic. I love magic. So I'm often guiding my clients, it should feel like magic. So you're not violently trying to press your hands up, because often we have this idea with exercise that more is good, even more is better, the most is just fantastic. No, it doesn't work that way. You want to do just enough that things start to move and adjust. And you'll feel, okay, I'm starting to feel muscles working in the back of my pelvis. By the way, I didn't mention this before, but I'm not there. I don't know what you're feeling. I don't know what your issues are. You need to listen to your body. Don't make it scream. Yeah, be kind to it. If it's too much, if it's feeling discomfort, release, back off a bit. Make it a smaller movement. Yeah, so it's good to listen to the body, to treat it with respect. So your hands are here, you're gently pressing up, and yes, some of you may notice I'm getting a little warm here. Just a wonderful feature of my body these days. So that's okay. So here we are. And now if we check in and observe the breath, it's going to be in the rib cage. Effortlessly moving the rib cage. Now, what some of you may feel, and I'm going to actually have you take a little break here. So you're going to release those legs because it makes your lower abdominals and your hip sockets work quite a bit. You know, you're going to feel muscles working, and maybe most importantly, in the back, in the lower back here, you're going to feel some muscles working that normally don't. So there's muscles, all those core central muscles of the pelvis have started to work, which you often hear about connected to Pilates, which is the discipline I teach. These are all going to start to fire. So we're going to release in a bit, take a little break. So you may feel your lower back sinks back into the chair. It's okay, but try and keep the shoulder blades in that contact position. So take a little break. And then again, very gently, now that you know what needs to happen with the pelvis, you can almost allow it. You can help it with the mind, the awareness to move forward into that more upright position with the muscles in the back of the pelvis working, that slight gentle arch, just by very, very small little press up of the thighs towards the hands or into the hands. You're going to feel some abdominal activity. And what's beautiful about activating your core in this way, activation of the core in this way releases the diaphragm and ribs. So these are two things that we want happening. There's a third that actually happen as a result. We want the activation of the core support muscles of the pelvis and lower spine. We want the expansion, the release and opening of the rib cage, which will promote elongation and proper aligning of the spine. And we can feel everything just starts to fall into place. Now, there's something that may limit how much that can happen, and you can release those thighs again. And as you do, use your awareness to see if you can maintain that pelvic position. Don't just let it sink back into the chair again. And then let your shoulder blades sink back into the chair. And it creates a feeling of what we like to call sitting royally, sitting as a master. Yeah, with this lovely open feeling in the chest, nice support in the lower torso. And if you observe the breathing now, the breathing is in the rib cage. But yes, there is something that can limit it, and it's called connective tissue, fascia. You could say it's the resistance that your body might have after prolonged tension, holding, collapse. Yeah, if the body has been in a collapsed state and working with tension for a long period of time, the fascia is like shrink wrap, elasticized shrink wrap. It will, conform itself to that new shape of the body so that when we try and open it up, it's going to resist. But if we go at it gently, slowly, it will respond. And guess what fascia responds most powerfully to? Our awareness, the energy of the being, so that when we direct it to these areas, and it's like we're willing those tissues to release, we can have a big impact, especially as we are refining and empowering the energy of that awareness by using it in this way to align the body. Now I'm going to show you a technique for breathing that can help to support that release and expansion of the rib cage, releasing those tissues. We're almost going to use the breath to help to stretch those tissues. So stretching from the inside out. You're going to take some fingers at the very top of your breastbone here. You're going to travel up the breastbone carefully now. Don't go poking in there. Be nice. You're going to go to the top, and just at the very top of what's called the sternal notch, the top of your sternum, there's a little depression there of soft tissue. Very gently, nicely, place your fingers, it can be one or two, fingertips there. And now you're going to use your awareness, which is now being directed to where you're feeling the touch of your fingers. And you're going to intention, it's like you're asking your body, I want to feel the breathing, the inhale happening from here. as if I'm drawing the breath in here from where my fingers are. It's going to create a kind of breathy in the throat feeling of breathing. And then as you exhale, again, that throaty and breath together, threathy, that breathy feeling. So again, drawing the breath in here and feeling the rib cage inflating, and then exhaling from there. Again, breathe at your own pace. Yeah, you have to breathe to where your body is comfortable in terms of its own rhythm. And then you're using your awareness to kind of check, has my lower back started to kind of gently sneak back into that slumped shape? And if it has, I can do a little mini thigh float. Having some problem here with my consonants. A little mini thigh float into my hand. One hand actually works quite well. And then release it as I get my pelvis in the right position, checking that my shoulder blades are still in contact. So it's like my awareness is working so powerfully to manage and guide and support all of these little adjustments that I'm making. And that is like exercise for that energy of consciousness, energy of awareness that is the being. So I'm actually helping the being to become better, more powerful at the same time as I'm helping my body do the same. And so I'm aware now of the movement of the breath in the rib cage, that easy, gentle expansion. And an image perhaps coming from my diving days, although I never saw one underwater, but a jellyfish. Movement becomes as fluid, as easy, as flowing as that movement of a jellyfish. And feeling the tissues starting to release now and allow more movement. And the lungs inside are going, yay! The diaphragm, there's a widening of the whole lower rib circumference area here because the diaphragm is attached all the way around into the back. And the bigger the ribs, the more expanded they're able to remain. Even on the exhale, there's a bit of expansion. I often feel you want to feel that your back stays wide against the back of the chair, even on the exhale, because that will help to sustain the alignment, sustain the positioning of the pelvis. When the rib cage completely deflates, it collapses, and then everything falls. If I can keep a bit of width in the back, even on the exhale, again, I'm using my awareness to gently will that to happen, that I want to experience that. It's almost like if you tell your body what you want, it will, it will try and do that. But often we just shove it around, and nobody wants to be shoved around. And then the body kind of digs in its heels and won't play. But if we, invite it, if we give it the guidance, and then it's kind of like the body wants to sort of show what it can do. It's quite extraordinary, the capacity that this body has that we're not able to access because we can be quite violent with it. And we don't want to do exercise to our body. We want to do it for our body. And so we need to use the awareness in a very powerful, accurate way. Inviting the body, inviting it to give the being this experience of the movement of the breath, of this elongation and aligning of the spine, of the pelvis staying powerfully positioned, the core muscles active. Okay, we can bring the hand down now and let's see if we can sort of sustain that. Breathing is so important because it impacts almost every, if you will, system, every organ, every function in our body. When we think about the main organs for life are up here in or near the rib cage. You've got your heart, your lungs, your liver, your pancreas. You've got the beginning of the intestines down, and all, and of course the solar plexus here, a big nerve plexus is here, and all of that can affect your immune system, that can affect your responses, your reactive responses, all of these things. Sometimes we have anxiety and we don't know why. Well, we've got this enormous pressure because of the posture being like this, and then we bring our arms up, and then there's just this big old knot there, and we want to untie that knot, because all of these organs are trying to work inside there. And who wants to work in a tight, clenched fist? We want to create a nice, expansive area, workplace, if you will. It's like the organs are going, these working conditions have a lot to be desired. We're going on strike. And then we run into problems, So we want to help everything function better. And we can do that by ensuring through the alignment, through proper activation of those core muscles, that the breathing space, that rib cage, is in a nice expanded place so that those organs can function properly. But then again, even just on on the level of movement, we need those rib cage to maintain that expanded state because of the impact they have. It's kind of like if you had a marionette and you kind of lowered it down onto the ground, all of the limbs, everything would become slack and nothing would move very well. When we open the ribs, they don't just go poof out to the side, they actually open like an umbrella and lift up. And all the tissues that are connected from there down get elongated, get pulled and lengthened. And so they can start to become part of stabilizing and helping us mobilize the other parts of the body. Because, the torso is all about stability. And if everything is compressed, those stabilizing muscles cannot do their job. So then we start to grip everywhere to try and hold ourselves together because the proper stabilizing muscles can't work. So many things are dependent on this. But more than anything, it just helps us feel better. I mean, hopefully you feel better just being in a body that is in a better state in terms of that expansive feeling in the rib cage, the elongation of the spine, and that active core area that's helping now to support those big structures down there of your lower back, your hips, etc. So we're going to do a little bit more now in terms of mobilizing because, as mentioned, we've got those old patterns that have kind of gotten quite ingrained and that have caused the tissues to become quite tight. And so they may not respond immediately. So movement can be very helpful. Yeah, it's not just stretching, but movement where it's kind of a dynamic stretching can be quite helpful. So the body doesn't sort of freak out like, why are you holding me in this stretch state for half an hour? But it's this gentle, stretching and releasing that feels more like a massage for the body. So what we're going to do is we're going to move forward on the chair a little bit. I might just move mine back here so we don't end up right on top of the camera. And you can see here, I'm going to move sideways. So now I'm no longer touching the back of the chair. And I've got my, feet flat on the ground. I've got my heels feeling like they're under my knees. And, in this position where I don't have the back of the chair, I may feel like, oh, I'm going to collapse. I can't hold it. I'm going to fall down. And, it's so easy to just kind of do this. But you can see this is just not very good. Actually, ideal alignment and how I can help myself get back up is, again, if I put my hands on my thighs and I think of pressing my thighs up into my hands, that can help cue my pelvis to rock forward. And as it rocks forward, it's like, this wonderful lift to the spine, to the ribs. The ribs then can expand as these core muscles start working. They release the diaphragm, they release the rib cage, and it can start to expand and open. And as it expands and open, it just becomes easier to stay here. So, it's not like I have to keep trying to press my thighs up, but if I even just think, and this is how powerful the being is, that consciousness, that energy is, if I just think of pressing, if I just think about pressing my thighs into my hands, that even could just be enough to get all those muscles working and create that release. Who knew that there were muscles you could activate to create release in the ribs, but there are. So in this position, we're going to do something called the spine dance. And this is going to be mobilizing the spine forward, back in rotation and side to side, all the directions that can help it to feel more healthy, the tissues. So you're going to slide your hands back on your thighs. My chair back's in the way here, but you're going to slide your hands back on your thighs. And as you do, you're going to almost feel like your thighs are trying to float a bit more to help rock that pelvis slightly forward, to arch a little bit more, and the eye line is going to go up. So now I'm stretching the whole front of my spine. And then you're going to slide the hands forward, release the legs, and you can even start to press your thighs into the seat of the chair, which is going to activate some muscles that really need it underneath. You're going to press your thighs to let your pelvis rock back now, without collapsing too much, to round your back like the letter C. My hands are now slid right forward over my knees. Again, sliding my hands back, I release the thigh press and I float. My thighs feel like they're kind of floating a little bit, getting lighter. Slide my hands back, pull my elbows gently back again. Don't make your body start screaming. Nicey, nicey, and slide the hands forward. And your thighs may just want to press into the chair seat, might become kind of natural. Do that, which will help the rounding of the back. Sliding the hands back, opening up the front of the spine, sliding the hands forward, pressing the thighs, rounding the back, sliding the hands, opening up the front of the spine. And the whole time I'm observing. It's like I'm so curious, and I just want to follow everything that's happening. I want to stay connected with my awareness and help my body. I want to feel thighs pressing, spine open up the front, elbows gently pulling back, opening up gently in the chest. And then I want to release those thighs and press them into the chair to help my pelvis rock back and stretch my arms forward and feel, enjoying that lovely feeling of the stretch across the back of the ribs. And then I'm going to come back into the middle. And in the middle position, there's a slight thigh hover, if you will, or press upwards. But again, it's almost more at the level of my mind than anything, my awareness. And I'm just going to find the horizon. And I'm going to enjoy the feeling of my body in this beautiful alignment, which ideally is earlobe, shoulder. Don't worry if you can't see this. Get a friend to look. Rib cage, hip. Just a little information. At some other time, you can maybe explore that. So I'm going to come back to the front. So we're going to go now into rotation. So we're still sitting forward on the chair. Don't go back. You're going to slide one hand forward. So your right hand maybe can go forward. Your left hand back and twist. And then go the other way. Sliding that left hand forward. Right hand and elbow coming back. Twist to the other side. Your head will look that way as well. And slide and twist. Now, what can help me to stay stable on my pelvis, because you might find yourself starting to rock from side to side, is if I actually just press the backs of my thighs into the chair seat a little bit. And that's good too, because it actually helps muscles work in the lower torso area of the pelvis, the thighs that need it. And then turning the other way. So this is the second step in our spine dance, rotation. The first one was forward and back. Second one, rotation and twist. And feeling like a barber pole, I'm getting taller and taller. And twisting the other way. And coming back to the center. And then the third part of our spine dance is the side bend. So your hands are just resting nicely on your thighs. Just take a check-in. You may want to do a slight thigh press upwards, just slight one to help get that pelvis right up on top. And now we're going to side stretch. So let's take the head. Just think of your ear trying to listen to your shoulder. What's it saying? Nothing. And then you're going to slide your hand, your same hand as the side your head is going, your right hand forward, and let your body side stretch over to the right. Feeling that lovely stretch all the way up that left side, right down to your hip crest. So that bone, the hip bone down there. And then you're going to slide the hand back and stack up. Again, you can do a slight now press of your thighs into the chair seat to anchor the pelvis. That's a way of activating the muscles to stabilize. And then again, to the other side. Here, listening to the shoulder. And then hand and side stretch. And we often need this because it gets so tight here that, again, it limits our breathing and it can start to create compression in the spine and joints when it gets tight down there. And then slide it back up. So this stretch is quite important for proper healthy movement. It's hard for our spine to elongate if the sides of the body are literally being held pinched together by tight tissues. And it's hard for the ribs to open when those tissues are quite tight up the sides of the body. And then listen to the other shoulder, the left shoulder. Slide the left hand forward and nice stretch. And you can observe the breath now, maybe inflating more on that right side, very gently, and then come back to the center and pause. Great, so that's our chair dance, spine dance. I guess it was a spine dance in a chair. And so here we are back in the chair again. Let's move right back so we can sit comfortably. But now after all that movement, it may feel like, I don't really feel like collapsing. My body is kind of comfortable staying in this more properly aligned shape. And if I check into my loyal indicator, oh yeah, the breathing is happening up in the, in this upper section of the torso from the diaphragm, lower ribs upwards. So again, if you are feeling a bit of slumping happening, because boy, habits die hard, you can just do a little bit of a thigh float to help get that pelvis. And actually, we might do even just an exercise to reinforce that. You're going to just a little thigh float there. And then you're going to reach your arms forward out in front of you, in front of your chest. And you're going to feel how now, with your body properly aligned, just holding the weight of your arms here, your core abdominals responded to that demand, as well as in the lower back there. And they've engaged to help support that. And then you're going to actually press the bottoms of your thighs, the underside, into the chair seat and feel like your body is kind of being raised upwards. And, feeling that a little bit taller. Yeah, you didn't know you were going to grow 2 inches. Okay, maybe half an inch. Actually, you can grow quite a bit just by getting the body to align properly. And then gently breathing there, observing the breath, feeling it stretching those tissues between the ribs, stretching the diaphragm. And then gently releasing, bring the arms down. And then as we turn the hands to the thighs, let the rib cage take the support of the back of the chair, the shoulder blades. Just observing how at this point now, everything is quite nicely supported. Yeah, it feels like things are now powerfully being sustained there. And what's lovely about this is, we've been using the awareness, and now the awareness is actually, and I actually do all of this even as a precursor to meditation, because I find it helps, especially early in the morning. It kind of helps I feel sometimes my consciousness, it might be relaxed, especially if I don't let it start to think about, the million things I might have to do in the day. But, sometimes there's a bit of sleepiness. And so I use my awareness in this very, if you will, specific, powerful way. And it's almost as if it brings it all together and concentrates it. And, just as there's alignment for the body, and when that alignment is ideal, is closer to that ideal, the body functions better, loyal indicator breathes better. Just as there is that for the body, there is the positioning of my awareness. And for the being, which is that energy of consciousness, the ideal, if you will, form is concentrated, and concentrated into a very, very subtle point. And when I can experience the consciousness become concentrated, and it's interesting, I actually used to do this as a dancer intuitively. And maybe, athletes, other people do that, but and intuitively when I dance and I would be in class and I would be exhausted, I would have experienced that, not that I've experienced, but it was a very exhausting class. And, the teacher's saying one more time for the choreography that we've learned. And I would very intuitively bring all of my awareness and just, it was almost, I was willing it to become very, very focused and concentrated. And as I did this, I would feel this incredible amount of energy surging up here, but just surging up in me. So that when it came time, as the 5, 6, 7, 8 go, from being, just practically at the point, please call 911, I could explode into so much energy and, do the routine without feeling like 911 is going to be necessary. And I found that quite amazing, but intuitively it was, I knew that I needed to focus the awareness, focus that energy, concentrate it so that I would survive, so that I would become more powerful. And so, in fact, this is really the goal of meditation, because often with everything we have to do with, we get so kind of dispersed, that energy becomes very dispersed. And just in using the breath in this way, it was almost, we were aligning it as well, bringing it into a more concentrated form, a more powerful form, a form in which we have more capacity, in which we become lighter, more free. It's kind of this wonderful paradox. It's not that we become tight and, hell, but we actually become unlimited. When that consciousness isn't all over the place, getting lost here, there, and everywhere, and what's going on, and what happened last week, last year, and what might happen tomorrow. But it's about how I can be present, not just be present, but be present how. Be present with all the insanity going on, and be present in a form in which I feel powerful, I feel capable, I feel okay. Just to feel okay, to feel well, and that whatever, might come next, I'm ready. And that's how my body can feel as it's sitting in this active state. It's active, and yet it just feels supported by its own muscles, properly supported by the muscles working together, cooperating with each other. One last thing about the breathing, and I know it's almost time for question and answer. But there's a third area that we can check. So we've got the activation of, everything that's going on in the pelvis. We can feel how that's nice and active. But again, it's not, more, just enough. Not to push until we start to feel pain or fatigue, that the rib cage is nice and expanded, and that the movement of the breath is very nice and easy there. But in the head, and this becomes extremely important when we put on this. Yeah, everybody knows what this is. Yeah, we put this on, and you know what the mask is revealing? How poor our breathing was before. Because if it wasn't happening before, this isn't going to make it any better. And often what is happening is when we are collapsed like this, when we're in this slumped position, this all becomes like weight, and nothing is lifting. And all these tissues, everything is being pulled, like all the weight of the ribs, the torso is pulling all those tissues inside from the sinuses, pulling them down and actually narrowing those passages. So that it actually, if you're slumped here, you can all round forward. I know you never want to go there again, but just humor me. And if you focus your awareness on what's happening in the sinus area as you breathe, just, it doesn't feel like much going on. It actually should feel like a lot of airflow. So again, if we go back to, and you can do your thigh hover, get your shoulder blades against the back of the chair, sitting in that royal way, feeling that expansion of the rib cage. If you need to do again, the sometimes referred to as ocean breathing because of that breathy in and out of the breath. That now when you focus on what's going on in the sinus area, there actually can feel airflow. Yeah, and as I lift my arms up, it's a little bit more, but if I'm here and I lift my arms up, it's just stuck. So, so, so important. Let's go back again to the breathing. And observing how free and clear it is in the sinuses. Feeling very light. And of course, helping us to concentrate the consciousness. And ready to hear from you. So hopefully that was helpful, and any questions you may have.
That was very helpful. Lots of people have left messages saying how much they've enjoyed it. And in fact, there's somebody asking, and that, well, actually, they're saying, this is so amazing. Feel happy, relaxed, yet active. Does Tanya do regular classes that I can do, please? Online, obviously.
Yeah, actually didn't know I'm actually doing this to promote. No. Actually, it's very interesting, and I'm in touch, as you can imagine, with some of my colleagues. It's been a very difficult time. Here in Montreal, we've gone into the red zone again. We're not in the full lockdown that we were before, but it's affected my work. I can't go into work. Whatever I do has to be online. I can't, all the gyms and things like that are closed. I could probably go into one-on-ones, but a lot of those places are in gyms, so it's a bit tricky. And many clients don't really want to. And some of them, not because they're afraid to come in and do a session with me, but they're concerned because of where they work. And I thought this was so sweet. They're concerned about that they might actually, negatively impact me because of the amount of people they come in contact with in their work. So I thought that was quite sweet. But what it's meant is we're looking at how can we reinvent ourselves. So yes, I do need to do something online. I am in the process of setting myself up for that, and I can certainly make that information available to Inner Space as and when that happens.
Wonderful, thank you. We look forward to it. I think many of us are going to be joining you online. That was great. Here's the other question. Actually, it's two different questions that have come in. One is, how can the breathing exercises help me with anxiety and then and stress, the stress of the job, because I'm on Zoom all day long with the Zoom meetings, and it's very exhausting. So how could the breathing exercises help, and how could I fit it in? That's one question. Go on.
Okay. Should I answer it then now?
Go for it. Yep. And then I'll ask you the next one.
So that's a very good question. And yes, in fact, how we breathe can actually be supporting or even creating anxiety. Because of the pressure it's putting on this solar plexus area in our body, on this area where, kind of, if you will, on a systemic level in the body is sort of cueing, it's kind of putting the body into a state of distress, 24/7. And I say 24/7 because you can think, yeah, but part of that we're sleeping. It's not like it lets go. So I mentioned I'm meeting with this client who was looking for something to help her with her anxiety. Well, her anxiety was getting to a point where her ribs were being held so strongly that they felt bruised. And, you can even maybe check some of these tissues here, just from the constant 24/7, even as she was sleeping, tension that she was holding from the pressures of her work. That is going to create distress in your body. Yeah, because, the body has certain things that it needs to be able to do to function. And when those are put under stress or are feeling compromised, this can, the body knows there's a problem, that there's something not right. So this can create kind of a low grade but constant state of distress in your body that can become normalized. So we're not even aware that perhaps is contributing. So it'll be interesting for you to experiment with this to see if I actually liberate my rib cage and get the breathing happening to this degree, what impact might it have on those situations. One little story I'll share. We get huge snowstorms here in Montreal, and I mean, they're bad, like almost whiteouts, can't see anything. And, when you're out on the road in those, it's pretty tense. And I remember once coming back from work, and I'm driving back, and it's a disaster. I mean, you see cars off the road, people are sliding around. It's pretty scary. And, we call it white knuckle driving because you're holding the steering wheel that hard. And it was so intense that I did a check-in and I could feel I'd stop. I was often what we call holding the breath. I was still breathing, but so minimally down from the diaphragm down. And I released, I did the exercises, I focused on that. And it helped so much. It made me feel that I am ready for anything. Bring it on. It was quite empowering. And that's often a huge part. Anxiety is where you feel powerless. So something that's going to help you feel empowered, feel a sense of mastery, even if it's just within your own body, it will translate. And so that's why that can be very helpful. So experiment. And I'd like to hear.
Thank you. Here's the next question. There's a couple more, so let's see if we can get more. I suffer with anxiety attacks. I practice yoga and pranayama daily to combat hyperventilation. Yet my lower back muscles feel completely stuck down and increasingly painful. I do gentle stretches daily, which help for 5 minutes, and then the pain and stiffness return. Can you suggest anything else?
Well, again, it'll be interesting for you to experiment with this. It's an interesting element that in breathing, I mean, there's so many ways that we're being taught to breathe out there. And actually, I just finished a session this morning called Breathe and Move. And one of the comments was, wow, we don't really focus on the breathing. You don't tell us when to inhale, when to exhale, how to inhale or exhale. I said, well, no, you don't really want to focus on it directly. You want to create a state in the body called alignment that will actually support the breathing happening quite naturally and liberate this area of the chest. In fact, that's often a big problem in back pain, back tightness, and just generally that tightness and pain is the ribs are being held. The ribs are not moving. There's so much tightness there. The diaphragm, the tightness in the diaphragm. And often, any kind of stretching or whatever will just not impact them. Even, some of the stretching, it's nice, and it can help things feel good. But if I don't develop that kind of inside out approach of, activating the core properly to liberate those muscles, to get them to let go, not just stretch them while they're still holding on, but get them to let go. And that's what I feel this activation does. And actually, a big part of that is the consciousness. And I'm using my awareness to support that. So that's why meditation can be helpful as well. And we'll finish with a meditation experience that I think will help.
Okay, 2 more questions. Let's see if we can fit them in.
Sure.
Due to the tightness in my chest and throat, I find it difficult to talk freely, and people can hardly hear what I say. Caused by anxiety, I have not always been able to free this area of my body. I did notice that I do stop breathing sometimes for several seconds and have noticed that I breathe only down to just the top of my chest. What else can I do to free these areas?
Again, I'm hoping that's what these exercises are going to help you be able to do. Proper alignment, activation of the core so that you can get that release in the chest. I do like this one with the fingertips here. Even if it's so tiny, it's not a huge expansion, but it's happening globally in the rib cage. It is creating big volume changes. Again, the key here is to promote release of the tension. It is tension that is creating that. It is tension that's giving the experience of holding the breath. I mean, the diaphragm may still be doing tiny little attempts to keep us alive, keep the body going, but it's the holding pattern. And we will hold if our alignment is such that all the body can do is hold here. So to pay more attention to that, pay more attention to the contact points, to the proper positioning of the pelvis, and to feeling that the ribs are naturally expanding. Not that I'm trying to make them, but they're naturally doing it because of that aligning, and to see how that helps.
Thank you. And the final question. Will this type of breathing help with my sinuses?
Well, again, I think that hopefully that will, in the sense, you're not going to have this incredible strain being put on all these tissues coming down from the head, because it's not called connective tissue for nothing. It's called connective tissue because it's connected, and it connects everything together. It's like saran wrap over every single organ, bone, tissue, everything in your body. And so all those tissues connected to everything that's below it, if they're collapsing, and then I'm bringing my hands up, the tension and the stress that's putting and pulling down from these areas create blockage. And, that will create anxiety, because it's like the body's going, I can't breathe. So if your body is going, I can't breathe, nonstop 24/7, of course, that's going to contribute to a feeling of unwellness, of low-grade anxiety. So we want to, just to do this, it just creates a feeling of euphoria even in your body. It just, it's like your body's like happy, and it will share that happiness with the being that helped it get there.
Thank you. Okay, would you like to do a very short meditation, because we really have reached ending time? That would be appreciated.
Sure. And we're almost there anyway in terms of getting ourselves to that place. So guess what? We're going to start with everything we did, not everything, but just that sitting royally. And you want to check using your awareness, because meditation is all about empowering that energy of consciousness by how we use it and how we position it. So first we're using it to place the shoulder blades, do a little thigh hover to place the pelvis, and releasing those thighs, but keeping the shape of the bones, using the awareness, feeling where they are and going, I'm sustaining you. I'm sustaining you now in that lovely royal alignment. And then I'm observing the breath, inviting the tissues to release, to expand and relax. And then in doing all of that, I'm taking now my awareness and I'm bringing it and I'm turning it in on itself. And I'm doing that right up here where seeing is. Sometimes they say that the seat of the soul is the third eye, which we can say is right here in the center of the forehead. And so we have this triangle. And it's like I'm triangulating myself. So I bring myself towards the two physical eyes, the seeing. Bring my attention all the way up there. And it's like I'm gently sustaining my awareness there, sustaining it there. And it's triangulating me to that third eye, to the place where I sit, where consciousness, where thinking happens. And I'm willing that energy, I'm inviting it to go to a point form, to become so minute, so tiny, tiny, tiny. I know what tiny means. And I'm just saying, I'm going there now, becoming so tiny. My awareness is just becoming tiny, 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 minuscule. I speak French. I don't know, minuscule is en français, mais so it's becoming very, very tiny, very small. And in doing so, and positioning itself in its true form, its ideal form, concentrated and centered on its seat of mastery, I am now in that position where I'm most powerful. Where I can, to be powerful means it's not power over anyone, but I'm no longer going to be easily influenced. Where I feel I have a sense of anchor and stability in myself. And a feeling of joy, of peace, of stability. You know, all these qualities that suddenly emerge, just like the breath. You know, I often say this area is like, has a counterpart in the being. And when the being is truly breathing, is free to breathe, all of these lovely qualities become available very naturally. Stability, happiness, contentment, peace, and perhaps most importantly, this desire to benefit. This very caring attitude emerges. And so this is the most powerful position I can place myself in, just to become concentrated and seated here. And then breathe. Breathe, body and soul. And feel how the two now come into harmony, how they support each other, the being, the body, the being. And this wonderful harmony is called wellness. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya, and thank you everybody for joining us.